For years, Epic Rap Battles of History was one of the most relevant channels on all of YouTube, with each one of its uploads getting tens of millions of views. But for a year and a half now, there hasn't been a single upload on the channel, with many starting to ask the question, what happened to it? Well, to understand this, we'll first have to take a look at the history of the series. What separated ERB from all the other YouTube shows made in 2010 was its production value. If you ever watched a behind-the-scenes episode for one of their videos, you'd see how much work goes into them. The music and raps are all well-produced, they have people designing the costumes and props, there's graphic designers for the backgrounds, and on filming days they have a full team of people there. Compare that to most other channels on this website, especially ones in 2010, and there's no choice but to appreciate how much work was put into one of these. And over time, the productions continued to get even better, with the help of the show's creators Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd. The first episode was John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly, and it set up the basic structure of an episode. The announcer would set up the battle, one character would start, the other would go next, the first character would respond, and then the second character would wrap it up. Then it ended by asking who won and who should go next. Things really took off with the second battle between Darth Vader and Adolf Hitler. Even though it followed the same format as the first, it set the precedent of who would be squaring off against each other. Not only did it make fictional characters fair game, but the two usually also needed to have at least some sort of loose connection between one another. In this case, it was evil dictators trying to take over civilization. Needless to say, this second battle was a massive success, with it now having close to 100 million views and proving that Peter and Lloyd just stumbled onto an amazing format. With an audience now established, they went to work on new episodes. From there, they made some of their most notable videos, such as Albert Einstein vs. Stephen Hawking, Abe Lincoln vs. Chuck Norris, Shakespeare vs. Dr. Seuss, and Justin Bieber vs. Beethoven. To this very day, these songs are still worth a watch, and that can't be said for 90% of YouTube in 2010. By the end of the first season of Epic Rap Battles of History, it had become one of the biggest shows on the website, and companies started to take notice. The YouTube network Maker Studios was looking to grow at the time and decided to buy out the show. Since I don't know any of the details about this acquisition, I can't say if it was a good deal or not, but it did lead to some changes on the show. For Season 2, they moved the series from Peter's channel to its very own page. And on top of this, there was a very clear bump in production quality, which I assume is from Maker now financially backing the episodes. I'd say Season 2 was the very best of the series. The show was still fresh, Maker was handling the business side of things, plus Peter and Lloyd now had a bigger budget to bring the show to its full potential. Bill Gates versus Steve Jobs, Gandhi versus Martin Luther King, Doc Brown versus Doctor Who, and almost every single other one were really solid offerings and cemented the show as one of my favorites on the website. This fine-oiled machine was on a roll. I really can't stress enough how much I loved this show back in the day. Not only did they look good, but the raps were often very inventive and clever. So right now I just want to share a few of my favorite lines. For their 2012 election video, Obama described Mitt Romney by saying he was so rich and white it's like he's running against a cheesecake. In the Russian leader battle, Gorbachev described him mending relations with the United States and ending the Soviet Union by saying that he shook hands with both Ronalds, Reagan, and McDonald's. In Babe Ruth versus Lance Armstrong, Babe said, "So come on little buddy, don't look so pissed. With all that blood and attitude, you're like a menstrual cyclist." And the final one I wrote down is when Martin Luther King told Gandhi, "I've got so much street cred they write my name on the signs. I'd ring you for tech support, but I got a Nobel Prize." These videos were just so creative and entertaining that I like to feel a lot of younger kids started watching them and actually went and looked up the historical figures they talked about and maybe learned a thing or two about history because of it. After a stellar second season run, the channel took a 6-month break before coming back with Season 3, and I'd consider this run more of a mixed bag. There were some memorable battles like Stephen King versus Edgar Allan Poe, and nothing was that bad, but to me at least it felt like a downgrade from Season 2. I'd put Season 4 in the same category as 3 in my personal ratings. There were some good ones, some okay ones, but overall it was still one of the best shows on YouTube. After the season was done, they took another break from videos. This brings us to the most recent batch of battles, Season 5, which I have to be honest didn't do much for me at all. And it seemed like many others online shared my opinion. None of the episodes really stick out as being amazing to me now, and there are two that many actively disliked. The first was Bruce Banner vs. Bruce Jenner, which has the worst like to dislike ratio of all the rap battles. The basic complaint is that it was quote-unquote SJW propaganda, and that's a direct quote I got from the comment section. I don't have much to say about this battle, but if you go and check it out for yourself, you could form your own opinion. The second controversial one is Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, and I can explain a bit more clearly why this one was disappointing. During the 2012 election, when the channel was at its height of popularity, they did Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney. And that did a good job letting both parties get jabs in at one another before Abraham Lincoln appears at the end, saying he doesn't really like either of them that much and smacks them both across the face. This was appreciated because it tried to keep things fair, pointing out the public's general animosity towards both political parties and career politicians. Skip ahead 4 years, however, and Clinton versus Trump was a different story. Hillary comes off better during the battle, and when Lincoln comes down at the end, he sides with Hillary and slaps Trump in the face twice and leaves Clinton untouched. As you can imagine, a lot of longtime fans were disappointed that it wasn't handled like the election of 2012, and marked a low point for the series. By season 5, the views of an average episode were a third of what they were in season 2. And this comes down to 3 reasons why. Firstly, as already mentioned before, people weren't digging the more recent battles as much. Secondly, the series had caused minor controversies in season 5, a problem they never faced before. And finally, many were just getting bored with the show. For over 6 years, the format of the show didn't change, and what was once a novel concept became repetitive in a way. The fact that Peter and Lloyd didn't own the series probably didn't help things either. Also, I'd like to point out that by the time season 5 rolled around, they were no longer the only game in town rapping about historical figures. This is about when the Broadway musical Hamilton took off, which had its very own rap battles between Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. In December of 2017, a full year after the last epic rap battle was published, they finally made a new video explaining where they had gone. In it, Lloyd says that he's been working on his very own album and a TV show, and Peter has done, well, not much at all. As for if, when, and how the rap battles were coming back, that all remained up in the air. While researching for this video, I figured I might as well try to catch up with Watsky and Zach Sherwin to see what they've been up to since Epic Rap Battles of History as well. In the case of Watsky, he's been making music continuously throughout this time, and one of his music videos is an exclusive on Pornhub.com for some reason. As for Zach, he hasn't really been active on YouTube at all, but it appears that he's now a writer for the TV show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. In conclusion, I'm kinda glad that Epic Rap Battles of History stopped when it did. The novelty of the premise had started to wear out, and the numbers would be on a downward spiral if they continued. Also, since the show isn't even owned by them anymore, Peter and Lloyd don't really have much incentive to keep things going. Maybe a few years down the line they'll revive the show with new concepts and crazy ideas. But until then, I'm happy just watching the classics. I think I want to wrap up this video differently than usual. Instead of the normal asking a question and answering it, I instead want to show some of the parody videos where people made their very own rap battles. And they really varied in quality. Some of them were good, some of them were bad, but I just want to show a little bit of a montage of some of my favorites.
Player 1, Ezio Auditore. Player 2, Agent 47.
Try to hate on me, I'm a carbon copy of my gaming channel. Has more subs than your comedy. Put your highlights since nobody watches your podcast to see your loss. Who thinking to hate my fans? Man, just shut the oven, bully up.
And we're alive in this flight, can't survive, it's no faith against the warped AI. A claimer, so I come, not for the words you want, it's broken. Here come the test results, true morality core is broken. Like toxins, real fissures, no, I'm glad just get some disses. So listen, you don't wanna come end up dead like you're missing.
Audience, what are you doing watching me hone this new represent? You 6-year-old fans believe that subscribers only way to judge talent. Man, I'm on TV, king of comedy, while you're stuck on YouTube. Mike liked my stick of truth. He bagged, did you rap hard as Dark Souls 2?